Thank you so much for joining us today at the Campus Seoul at 7 o'clock. Thanks for taking out this time from your busy day to be part of this Campus Experts Challenge or part of this Campus Experts Summit. So, my name is Maxime and I'm a Googler based in Berlin, Germany, and I'm part of the Play Apps and Games Partnerships team. So what that means is my team works with the top couple of thousand apps and game developers on Android, and our goal is to make these app developers as successful on Play as we can, and we help them build innovative and cutting-edge apps on Android. So what do I want to talk about today? Well, my main topic will be app engagement. I'm just gonna start this presentation. So, app engagement. App engagement is a constant challenge for all apps of all sizes and user base sizes. So, app engagement is not a single tool or a tip or a best practice, but building an app that is very, very engagement involves a combination of a lot of things, and it should be part of your daily workflow. So what I'm going to try to do tonight is I'm going to give you a holistic overview of proven best practices around app engagement, and I'll be underlining everything that I say with examples from leading developers from around the world. So I want to make this as interactive as possible. If you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll call you up. Also, there'll be time afterwards to ask questions. So what's on the menu today? I think a really important first step is to talk about your engagement objective. And this is crucial for all the subsequent things I'm going to talk about, because it's kind of like your North Star. It guides all the development work you do, because it tells you what is the core activity or the set of core activities that you want to happen in your app. Then once you've defined a clear engagement objective, it's about improving this objective by testing new features that you want to release to users. And once you've done that, and once you've tested a few features, there's an art to releasing new features to the general user base. So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about how leading apps do that. I'll also talk about great onboarding, because this is a crucial step for you guys to explain the features and value proposition of your app to new users. And then I'll talk about a technique for releasing successfully releasing strategic content. So this is a technique that's been used in gaming and is very, very popular in gaming, and I'll talk a little bit about how it can be applied to apps. And last but not least, I'll talk about effective notification strategy. So notifications is not a new tool, but I'll talk about all the mistakes you can avoid and all the things you can do right to be successful at notifications. I'll jump right in for the engagement objective. Now, how many of you think that you have a very, very clearly defined engagement objective? I'm just curious. I'm not going to pick on you, but please raise your hand if you think that you really know what's the key things that your users need to engage with in your app. All right, I'm seeing a few hands, some brave people. Okay, the rest of you haven't either were too shy to raise your hand or haven't really clearly fleshed this out. So I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean. Now, Airbnb is a very popular app that most of you will probably know. Their key engagement objective is nights booked. So they really care about matching potential travelers to hosts. So everything that they do is they every feature they release or every change they make, they check the impact on this metric. Another really good example comes from IM. So IM is a community of photographers for photographers, and their engagement objectives is photos uploaded. So there it's all about getting photographers to upload beautiful photos. So everything they do gets measured in terms of that. YouTube, I'm sure everyone's heard about that. It's watch hours. So YouTube cares about how many hours of videos are watched every second, every minute, every day. And everything that we do, all the features that we release, are measured against that objective. And finally, I want to talk about a football app called OneFootball. It provides football fans around the world with live scores and also with football news. So their key engagement objectives is articles read, because that is a strategic initiative for them and they really, really care about driving that objective. So everything that they do gets measured against that. I hope that made the engagement objective a little bit clearer. It doesn't have to be one single KPI that you track. It could be 1 or 2 or 3 KPIs. But I want to be clear that an engagement objective is not something like downloads last week or session length. Session length can be an engagement objective if you're selling ad space, for example, but usually it's something that users are specifically doing in your app and that you're trying to get them to do. And it's a good idea to have that objective that you set clear across your whole company, so that all teams can work against this. Now, you may have plenty of ideas for large or small features that you want to build. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do feature testing so that what you're building actually contributes towards your engagement objective. So, in our view, the best practice for features or for building new features is very, very much like hypothesis testing. So you have to run a lot of experiments. The way that you do that is you first formulate a hypothesis about what your new feature will do. I'll use a very simple example. Your hypothesis is that changing the size of a button will increase clicks on that button. So that's your hypothesis, and then you develop a couple of variants to test that, right? So you might develop 3 button sizes that you can test. We can look at an example here. So this is the OneFootball app that I mentioned before. So their objective was to increase the number of articles read per user. And they had a couple of ideas for a new homepage for their app. And they actually built 3 variants of this homepage, and this is the variant or home screen that finally won out. And they ran all of these 3 variants against each other, and this one was actually the highest scoring one, and it had 6% more articles read per user than the other variants. So they were happy with that, and they implemented that. But the key thing here is that they had a hypothesis about what they wanted to build, what changes they wanted to make, and they had a KPI that they could compare the new homepage design to make that decision. This is just a simple example of how hypothesis testing for feature releases can work. Oh, one key thing to mention here is Firebase Remote Config. So there are many tools out there for testing features in the app. One tool that Google offers that's free is Firebase Remote Config, and you can it's connected to the Firebase Analytics suite, so you can target your features to user segments and things like that easily. So if you're looking for a tool to do these kind of hypothesis testing experiments, I encourage you to check it out. Now, having defined an objective and sort of having talked about how to run tests and and successfully find features that you want to launch, I'm going to talk about how how to release those features to the public, so to your main user base, and how to do it safely. And it's really quite simple. It's 3 steps. First, you have to ensure that your new feature or your new app or your new variant is technically stable. And why is that so important? So just over 50% of all 1-star reviews on the Play Store are resulting from stability problems or from bugs. So if you're trying to avoid dragging down your ratings average, make sure that you test for stability first before releasing to the wild. So the reason for that is that unhappy users are very, very hard to engage. The second step is to have a really good launch process involving alpha and beta testing, as well as soft launching, so using things like staged rollout on the Play console to make sure that the features you want to bring to market are introduced slowly rather than with a big bang, so that you can react to unexpected behavior, such as users not discovering the feature or not liking the feature, or there being technical problems there. The third thing, and an example is here on the screen, is find a good way of introducing new features to users, because they're not going to know that you've released a new account management feature if it's hidden somewhere in the navigation. So make sure you point it out. This sort of soft onboarding here that you see graphically is part of material design, and we have really good material design guidelines explaining how to do something like that. Now, there's also a set of reports that you can use on the Play Store, and 2 of them I want to call out. So there's the pre-launch report, which we just updated at Google I/O a few weeks ago. So with that, you can get some feedback on your new app before you release it to the wild. So we actually run your app on a bunch of real Android phones in a server, in a data center, and we test a few things. So you can get feedback on what it looks like on different phones, and also on bugs and stability and security issues. The second report I want to mention is the release dashboard. We just announced, or we just launched that at Google I/O. So this actually gives you real-time information of a new app release as it enters the market, and you get hourly updates on the performance and things like crashes and user behavior. So that's really, really useful to use when you're introducing an update to your app. Now, onboarding is a really, really, really important topic. I don't actually love the name onboarding. I prefer to say something like first-time user experience, because there can be lots of first-time user experiences as users interact with different features of your app or have different needs in your app. But what you want to do during onboarding is you want to explain the value of your app without the experience feeling like onboarding, because you want to have it, you want the experience to be as contextual and part of the product experience as possible, right? So the user doesn't want to feel like he's being onboarded. And I'll give you a great example of an app that does this really well. You may have heard of a developer called Freeletics. This is an app called Freeletics Bodyweight. So for them, the process of onboarding is actually not onboarding, but it's a process of progressively immersing the user into their experience. Now, what they do is their experience is all about the results that the user wants to achieve. So in their case, people want to get fit, or they want to build muscle, or they want to become an athlete. So right early on, when the user first opens the app, they ask a couple of questions to find out what the user really wants. And as they gather this information, not only does the app experience change, they show different models based on the answers you've given before. You know, someone who wants to build muscle might need to see something else from someone who wants to get lean. But they also offer, based on the answers, they also offer a customized training plan and training program to the user. So it's really about gradually letting the user enter the app's experience while also adding value at the same time. And this is working really, really well for them, in this case, to sell training subscriptions. I'll give you another example of really nice onboarding, and this time through personalization. So this is back to the football app called OneFootball. So their market research has shown that for football, most people really, really care about exactly one team, okay? So the first thing that they ask you is, what is your team that you support? So as soon as the user selects that, the app's branding already changed. So in this case, the user selected Arsenal. So on the next screen, the app already uses the right colors and the right logos. And then it asks the user to supply the information on the competitions that the user is interested in. And then on the third screen, this is the home screen. It's already perfectly customized. So you have all the news and updates related to the team and the competitions that the user is interested in. And this sort of, you can scroll down the screen and the customization continues. And this goes further than just the app experience, but now all the push notifications, all the messaging that the user receives is themed in that, for that team. Now, a lot of apps also have a need to have the user log in. So the reasons can be very, very wide ranging, right? So one reason could be to save the user preferences such as this and display it seamlessly across platforms, or on the web, on other platforms, and on tablets, for example. Now, building your own authentication infrastructure can be really, really resource intensive. So luckily, Google has two great solutions, and I just want to briefly talk about them. So on the one hand, we have Google Sign-In. So this is a type of federated login where you can access Google's signed-in user base around the world. So the example here is from Mobile's Labs, which is a budget planning app from Brazil. Now, it offers a super quick and super fast account creation login process. So here you have a selection, you have a Facebook login, you have a Google login, and you can register via email. If I click on the Google login, I'm asked to choose which of the two Google accounts I have on the phone. I click one of them, and third, I'm already logged in and my account is created. So this is super, super frictionless, super low friction, and very, very quick, and is a nice experience for users because I don't have to enter any passwords, I don't have to enter any email addresses. Now, for this particular example, when they implemented federated login, so when they implemented Google Login, they increased their login rate by 300% just by making it really, really quick and easy. The second tool that I want to talk about, this is personally one of my favorite tools that I work on. It's called SmartLock for Passwords. And this is essentially an API for you guys to save whichever login credential the user uses for future use. So I'm going to show you what this means. So this is Jazzio. It's a calorie counting app that helps you develop a more healthy lifestyle. So here, when you want to log in, it's super. If you want to create an account, it's super easy. So you click on one of the options: lose weight, build muscles, and stay healthy. And then the SmartLock email picker pops up. So what does this mean? This isn't a Google account. This is a list of email addresses that this user has previously used to log into other apps. So this doesn't have to be Google accounts. It could even be a Facebook login that they've used, or a Google Plus login. And then the user clicks on it, selects which one they want, and it's pre-filled in the email address field. So all that's left to do is to create a password. Now, a lot of you might understand this, but people enter their email addresses incorrectly all the time. So this can create a big headache for you in support volume and query answering, hey, I've forgotten my password, I can't log in. So this removes that issue from the get-go. And it actually leads to improved sign-up performance. So for Jazzio in particular, they saw a 14% increase in sign-up conversion, so in this flow, and 74% of users use the email sign-up here. So it's a big efficiency increase in your onboarding process. So after you've entered that, you're in the home screen here of the app. So it's a really sort of short and efficient sign-up process. So that's a little bit about onboarding. Now I want to talk about successful content launches. And the buzzword here that you guys might know from the gaming industry is called live ops. Have you guys heard about live ops or heard the term? Anyone? Okay, great. So I'm telling you something new, which is great. So live ops, put simply, involves running games as a service. Okay? Means that you frequently and dynamically introduce constantly changing content to players. Very, very frequently. So this could be like, not even once a week, but it could be once every couple of days. The goal of this live ops technique is to augment engagement, stimulate monetization, and reduce the churn of players. Now, when we look at gaming, there are three components. There is a content component, there is a sales component, and there's a timing component. I want to talk a little bit about how this combination translates to an app and how it can help you build sustainable engagement with your product. So this is an app called Memrise. It recently won the Google Play Award. So it's a very, very cool app, and I encourage you to check it out. It's a language learning app. Now, what they realized is that in September, a lot of people are going back to school, right? So there they had their event. They had a calendar and event in focus that they wanted to exploit. Students going back to school. And they knew that at that time, people were very motivated to learn or to start a new project. So what they did is they designed and released new beginner and advanced courses for their language learning to coincide with that timing. And then they ran a global campaign promoting those courses with a very nice discount. Now, this campaign was really, really successful. During that time, they sold 32% more courses, or generated 32% higher revenue than in normal months. Now, this is just one example of a combination of new content, event time frame, and a sale that can be really, really powerful in driving revenue. But what you can, so the thought behind this is that you want to be looking at this all the time. Think about how you can use this triangle to build up constant engagement with your app and bring back different segments of your users on a regular basis into the app, and also sell to them. This is a really, really powerful technique that's used around the world. Now, lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about notifications, and I mentioned this at the beginning. Notifications is not news, but at the same time, it's really, really, really hard to get notifications right. So I want to talk a little bit about the characteristics of good notifications for your apps, because I actually learned today that in Korea a lot of people are so bombarded with notifications that it's very easy for them to turn off notifications if you don't get it right. And this is, I think, true for most developed markets around the world. Now, the first key feature of a good notification is that it has to be relevant. Now, you have to find the right context of your notification. You have to speak the language of your users, and you have to be very mindful of the tone in which you write the notification and with which you address your users. You have to be creative, but stay true to your app's brand. So that's one very, very important characteristic. The second one is actionability. There's nothing worse than a notification that has no purpose. So make sure that you're very, very clear on your call to action. Be clear of what you want the user to do with that notification. And when you do, make sure that you actually track whether users are doing what you want them to do. You could, for example, with Firebase A/B testing, you can test different calls of action and see which one performs best in actually driving the outcome that you want. The next one is personalized. So as an app, you collect a lot of information about your users, right? Make sure that you use that information to segment your user base and create cohorts and find ways that you can customize the app with. So you can, perhaps if you know the user's name, use the name in the notification if it makes sense. Simple things like that can really, really make a difference in people interacting with the notification. And the last thing is timeliness. So this is also really, really important. I receive a lot of irrelevant, untimely messages when I sleep. So in the morning when I wake up, I have 20 notifications. I don't have the time to read them. So make sure that the timing of your notifications is good, and the frequency is also such that it's not annoying for the user. Now, there is a really, really cool feature in Android which allows you to integrate actual interactions in your notification. So in a messaging app, you can say reply from the notification. You can integrate all sorts of calls to action to make sure that the user does whatever you want him to do as you send the notification. So I'll give you a really nice example. So this is The Guardian, big newspaper based in England. So they did a really, really good job using the rich notifications feature on Android. So for the recent presidential election, so for the night of the election, they had this interactive notification showing the live results. And then they had these these small call to actions that the user could use to jump right in where they were interested in, right? So they could jump into the full results or the live block, or tell The Guardian to stop sending these invites. So for The Guardian, in this case, they had 170,000 people sign up to this notification, and they had about 5 interactions per user on this notification. So really, really powerful stuff. Another nice example is Citymapper. So Citymapper is like a commuting app. So they have a feature called Smart Commute. When you enable that and you tell it where you work and where you live, where your home is, it learns the time that you usually leave the office, and it will start sending you a permanent fixed notification updating you in real time about your travel options home, so that you don't even have to swipe open the phone to see if it's a good time to leave now or whether you should leave in 5 minutes because you will be waiting on the platform for your train. So this is really, really, really powerful stuff because it just lives on your home screen. The last example that I want to give is so this is an app called Stocard, and it allows you to save your loyalty program cards in the app. And then, based on your location, it will show the right loyalty card on your screen. So as an example, if you're a member of IKEA and you're in IKEA about to check out, it will show you your IKEA membership card so that you can scan it. And it will also show you the relevant discounts and coupons that are available at the moment. So how does Stocard do this? There's an Android API called Awareness API, and it gives you access to 7 contextual signals that are continuously collected by your phone. So it will give you access to things like the current weather of where the phone is. It will tell you whether the screen is on or off, whether the microphone is, the headphone is plugged in. It can tell you things like the access to the Places API and activity state of the phone, so whether you're moving, driving, or cycling. So it gives you a lot of contextual signals to enable you to send targeted notifications at the right time that are relevant and actionable. And it draws very little system resources. Just a quick shout out here to Firebase notifications. So Firebase notifications is a free service to send targeted notifications based on your Firebase Analytics user segments. So you can define custom audiences that you want to target, and it doesn't just work on Android, but it works on iOS and the web as well. So if you don't have a notification provider yet, you can look into that. Now, we've talked about having a really good engagement objective and how important that is in testing new features that you want to build, evaluating new features, and then releasing those new features and how to do that. Now, remember that onboarding or the first time user experience is a really, really great opportunity for you guys to introduce the value of the app. And keep in the back of your mind the power of strategic content and successfully introducing new content to the user so that they can keep coming back to you. And keep in mind the tips I gave for the notifications. So these are the things I wanted to talk about. I have some time for questions, but before we get to that, I have a Go link for you. So if you go to this link, you will find a very, very simple checklist for app engagement. So I know that, I think this presentation is being recorded, but you'll have to, watch 33 minutes of it to get all the tips. This has all the things that I talked about and a few questions that you can ask yourself to figure out if you're on the right track or not. And it has some additional resources. So this is kind of a one-page cheat sheet around app engagement and the way that Google Play sees best practices in that area. So with that, I want to say thank you very much for sticking around, listening to this talk. It's been a pleasure. Love being part of the Campus Experts Summit. So I'll be here if you have any questions. I'll be around till Friday, actually. So come and see me, ask for me. If you have any questions related to Google Play, launching apps, engaging apps, monetizing apps, I'd be happy to talk to you. So thank you very much.